All right, what's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave. Let's talk about Canelo Alvarez, who just lost to Terrence Crawford. What should he do moving forward? All right, and it's pretty simple. It's really not much to really say. Yes, he lost to Terrence Crawford, but I mean, it doesn't mean he's washed up. I think he still have opportunities to make a lot of money. And remember, this is part of a four-fight deal. Okay, when he signed with Riyadh Season and Ring Magazine in Turkey, it was a four-fight deal. So I don't know if there was any kind of rematch clause with Terrence Crawford, but if there is, he can exercise his rematch clause or whatever and have the rematch with Crawford. If he doesn't want to fight Crawford again, if he wants to move forward, there's plenty of opportunities there too. Now, Canelo's been at 168 for years, right? And it's not like we need him to come down. There's no fights there for that I would say he needs to come down for. He's already been a champion at 160, so it doesn't really matter. He can stay at 168. There are plenty of fighters there that he hasn't fought, and he can go to 175 again, or he can go above that. I really don't know what he wants to do. As far as historical wins, if he would want to go up to one or cruiserweight because he has never won a title up there, there's still opportunities for that. I would doubt he would fight a Jai Opatai, but um, the other guys up there like uh, what's his name, Badu Jack, which is a fighter that he was considering fighting before if he had fought him at a catch weight. There's him up there. You got Zerto Ramirez, who's doing everything in his power to avoid Jai Appetite. So maybe he goes up to cruiserweight, and and this is realistic. I don't think this is totally unrealistic. At the end of the day, yeah, cruiserweight is basically 200 pounds, but you can also get maybe possibly get one of these guys to come down and meet him at a catchweight, so he can win a title in a division that he has not won a title. He can still do something that's historical by being one of the few fighters that's won titles in six different divisions. He's already has five. So for starters, let's start there. That's something that he can do historically. Now, as far as big money fights, I would say the fight that would probably be the biggest money fight outside of Terrence Crawford rematch would probably be David Benavidez still. Now I don't think he's willing to go 175 and fight him because if he would have fought him, he would have fought him already. You know what I mean? But maybe if David can still come down and wait or meet him somewhere in between, that's a fight that he can still do. It's not a fight that I expected for him to do. I don't know if David can even come down to 168. It's gonna be over a couple years if he was to fight, because David has a fight coming up with Anthony Yard. So by the time he fights a Crawford or a Canelo, right? And I'm talking about David Benavidez. If he fights one of those guys and comes down and weight, because this is Turkey Al Sheikh, so this is one of the requests that he has. It's going to be over 2 years. It'll be well over 2 years by that time, and I don't believe he can come back down. He's pushing 30, and he's in his physical prime, and I don't think that coming down to 168 again would be beneficial for him. If he can really make the cut, yeah, but he'll be risking himself being drained and possibly being weaker for the fight. And that would be the disadvantage there going in the fight with a Crawford and I don't think he's gonna fight Crawford, but I don't think Crawford's gonna fight him neither. But you never really know. I didn't think Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford would happen, but if that fight is on the table and they're willing to meet somewhere in the middle or come to some kind of agreement to fight David Benavidez, maybe that's an option. It still would be a big fight. The younger Mexican fighter, Mexican American fighter versus the older Mexican fighter, and people still would really want it. Like even after this loss, people are still talking about that fight. All right. So yeah, I think that's also an option. The rematch with Bivol would also be an option, which I doubt he takes because that's not a fight that I don't think he won or came close to winning. And there's the other guys at 168. Maybe he fights one of them. There's a bunch of guys at 168 that haven't really fought each other yet. That are pretty close and near a title shot. You got Osley Iglesias, the Cuban. You got Christian M. Billy. You got Lester Martinez. You got Diego Pacheco. You got a lot of young fighters there that are top contenders that are looking for a title shot. But a lot of these guys haven't fought each other yet. I mean, yes, Lester and Christian just fought, and Christian has probably done the bulk of fighting some of the other decent guys at the division, but a lot of these guys haven't really fought. A lot of these guys are looking for a shot like Canelo, and now that Canelo lost and he doesn't have any titles, they would love to still fight him because it still would be a historical fight for them, a legendary fight for them. But for Canelo, it really wouldn't do much, you know what I mean? Because Canelo, has done everything already for the most part. So he has options, I mean, if he wants to pull anybody up to 168 to fight him, there's also that option as well. I think the most likely opponent for Canelo and Crawford from a guy moving up is Chris Eubank if he beats Conor Ben, simply because Chris Eubank, is an option for Turkey Al Sheikh. He's one of the guys that was his name was brought up in the 4-fight deal with Canelo. And Chris Eubank and Conor Ben did numbers. It was, one of the biggest fights of the year. And if Chris Eubank is to win in the rematch, Chris Eubank has fought at 168. I mean, me personally, I don't even think he should still be fighting at 160. But that would be something that Chris Eubank would be interested in. And it would be some momentum because if he's coming off the win again, he can go up to 168 and fight Canelo, even if it's not for a title. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think Canelo necessarily needs to fight for titles that he's already held and defended for years. So I would say Chris Eubank is the most likely fighter from anywhere below 168. I don't really see anybody else outside of Chris Eubank getting a shot at Canelo Alvarez that's below 168, You also got Hamza Shiraz, who I didn't mention before, who is a top fighter at 168 now, but he's only had his one fight there with this guy, Edgar Berlanga. He's coming off the knockout win here in New York. And that's also another guy, that's a guy that Turkey wants to Crawford to even face, or even Canelo. So let's see how that goes. There's options there. At the end of the day, as far as what he can prove, you know what I mean? Like as far as his legacy, I think the only thing he can really do at this point is maybe win a title in a different division and cruiser. But there's still a lot of money that could be made, and if you're getting over $100 million for the fight Bud, I'm not saying he's gonna get that in his next fight, but he still should get a lot of money if he is to fight one of those guys that like maybe a Turkey Al Sheikh really wants. Like I think he could get top dollar if he were to fight Benavides, fight Hamza, or fight Eubank. I think those would be the three biggest money fights outside of a Crawford rematch, if there is a rematch clause. Okay. Um, uh, but outside of that, I think those are the most realistic fights for me. Those are all realistic, and there are options. All right. As far as the fight itself, I already did my review and recap of the fight. Canelo just got schooled. He's gotten outboxed. It's not the first time in his career to lose and to get outboxed. But at the end of the day, he still has a lot of money to get made. You know what I mean? He can make a lot of money. I still think he looks good. I just think he got outboxed by a better fighter, but I think he still looks good. You know what I mean? I think Crawford made him look bad in the loss as far as the two of them, but Crawford just made himself look like one of the best fighters ever. So I don't think it's necessarily that bad of a thing. He took the loss like a champ. Like I saw his post fight interview, the press conference, and all the interviews he's done in between. I mean, he's been taking this loss like a champ. You know what I mean? He's not being sour about it. He's giving Crawford all his flowers and stuff like that. Um, you know what I mean? I just think that Canelo uh, still has fight in him and money that he can make. And I'm gonna keep saying that the money. I'm gonna keep bringing up the money because I think a lot of fighters, like I was saying this when Jermaine Franklin was fighting the I forgot the guy that is from the heavyweight. And I was saying, this is the time where a lot of fighters that's just kind of sitting on the couch, um, I think they should get in shape. I think the money is there to be made. You might get a phone call to be on one of these Riyadh season cards. So since that's the case, I think that while you're still in, and this is what Usyk has been doing, and probably will continue doing. Guys like Canelo, guys like Crawford, guys that's pushing mid to late 30s, that can still fight well. I think you could. I think you should keep going as long as the money is there. You know what I mean? Um, unless you're really looking really awful and you're looking like a guy that is taking a lot of damage. Your health is always going to be a concern. But I think Canelo, even in defeat, he looks like he could still fight, and he looked like he trained hard for this. He looked like he was in great, phenomenal shape, in the best shape that he could be at this stage in his career. And I think that, you know, he lost to Crawford, he lost to Bivol, but he can still beat a lot of these guys, and um, I expect to see him to return, you know what I mean, for as long as he can, I mean, he could retire and ride off to the sunset. Some people, I'm sure, in the comments are going to say he should just retire, and that's cool. Um, there's room for him to retire. There's room for Crawford to retire, but I still think that he can make a lot of money and fight a few more fights, you know, before actually retiring. All right. So I think he should finish out his deal that he signed with Turkey Al Sheikh, and he can play around with his options. You know what I mean? So, um, anyway, I don't think it should be too much of a tune up. I think he should be motivated because we don't want to have another William Skull situation when he's just unmotivated. I think he should fight someone good enough to where it could push him to want to be at his best on fight night. All right. So anyway, that's it about Canelo, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel, smash the thumbs up, and I appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.